I'd known Marcus Chen since freshman year of college, back when we were both awkward 18-year-olds trying to find our place in the world. We met during soccer tryouts, both of us fighting for a spot on the university team. I remember watching him on the field that first day. The way he moved with this effortless grace that made the game look like poetry. His dark hair caught the afternoon light, and when he smiled after scoring a goal, something in my chest tightened in a way I didn't understand yet. We became friends almost immediately. Marcus had this way of making everything feel easy, natural. We'd grab coffee between classes, study together in the library until it closed, and spend weekends kicking a ball around the empty practice field. By sophomore year, we were roommates in a cramped off-campus apartment that smelled like old pizza and athletic gear. It was perfect. What I didn't tell Marcus, what I barely admitted to myself, was that somewhere along the way, my feelings had shifted into something more complicated. I'd catch myself watching him a little too long when he wasn't looking, my heart racing when our shoulders brushed passing in the hallway. I'd memorized the sound of his laugh, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he found something genuinely funny. I kept these observations locked away in a part of my heart I was too afraid to examine. The fall of our junior year brought cooler weather and the most important soccer season of our college careers. Scouts were watching, and both Marcus and I were starting players, anchoring the midfield together with the kind of intuitive understanding that only comes from years of friendship. We could read each other's movements without words, anticipate each other's plays before they happened. On the field, we were extensions of the same person. "Jamie, you coming to the party at Sigma tonight?" Marcus asked one Thursday afternoon as we left practice. His practice jersey clung to his shoulders, darkened with sweat, and I forced myself to look at his face instead. "I've got that chemistry exam on Monday." "Yeah?" I adjusted my gym bag, trying to sound casual. The truth was, I'd been avoiding parties lately, watching Marcus flirt with girls, seeing him disappear into bedrooms with people who weren't me. It was getting harder to pretend it didn't bother me. Marcus bumped my shoulder with his, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. "Come on, Jay, you've been studying all week. One night won't kill you. Besides, I need my wingman." There it was, wingman. The word that reminded me exactly where I stood in Marcus's life. Best friend. Brother from another mother. Anything but what I secretly wanted to be. "Yeah, maybe," I said, knowing I'd probably end up going anyway. I always did when Marcus asked. I was weak like that. That evening, I sat at my desk trying to focus on molecular structures while Marcus showered. The bathroom door was open a crack, steam drifting into the hallway, carrying the scent of his body wash, something cedar and clean that I'd never be able to smell again without thinking of him. I stared at the same page for 20 minutes, not absorbing a single word. When Marcus emerged, toweled around his waist and hair still dripping, I quickly looked back at my textbook. "You're definitely coming tonight," he announced, rifling through his closet. No arguments. "You need to get out of your head for a while." He wasn't wrong. I'd been spending too much time in my own head lately, analyzing every interaction between us, looking for signs that maybe, possibly he felt something too. It was exhausting and pointless. Marcus was straight. He'd had a handful of girlfriends over the years, casual things that never seemed to last more than a few months. He'd never given me any reason to think he saw me as anything other than his best friend. "Fine," I sighed, closing my textbook. "But I'm not staying late." Marcus grinned, that full wattage smile that made my stomach flip. "That's my boy." The party was exactly what I expected: loud music. Too many people crammed into a house that smelled like beer and cheap cologne. And Marcus immediately getting pulled into conversations with half the soccer team. I grabbed a drink and found a corner where I could observe without having to engage much. This was my usual strategy. Be present enough that Marcus wouldn't worry, but distant enough that I didn't have to watch him charm everyone in the room. I was about 40 minutes into my wallflower routine when I noticed her. Tall, blonde, laughing at something Marcus was saying with her hand on his arm. The familiar twist of jealousy tightened in my guts, sharp and unwelcome. I hated this feeling, hated myself for feeling it. Marcus deserved to be happy, to find someone who could give him what he needed. The fact that I wanted to be that person didn't matter. You look like you're having a great time, a voice said beside me. I turned to find Taylor Rodriguez, one of our teammates, smirking at me knowingly. Just tired, I lied. Long week. Taylor followed my gaze to where Marcus was still talking to the blonde girl. You know, for someone who claims to be straight, you sure do watch Marcus Chen a lot. I don't time, not relax, Taylor said, holding up a hand. Your secret's safe with me. But maybe you should consider actually doing something about it, instead of torturing yourself at parties. There's nothing to do anything about, I said quietly. Marcus isn't. He doesn't ... double quotes, doesn't he? Taylor raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Before I could respond, Marcus was making his way over to us, the blonde girl nowhere in sight. There you are. I've been looking for you. This party's dead. Want to head out? Maybe grab some late-night food? What happened to your new friend? I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Marcus shrugged. Not really my type. Come on, I'm starving. We ended up at our favorite diner, 24, a place near campus that served breakfast all day and had booths with cracked vinyl seats. This was our spot, where we'd had countless conversations over the years, solving all the world's problems over pancakes and coffee, but tonight felt different somehow. I couldn't stop thinking about what Taylor had said, couldn't stop analyzing every look, every gesture. You've been weird lately, Marcus said suddenly, looking at me over his coffee cup. Everything okay? Yeah, just stressed about classes and scouts and everything. It wasn't entirely a lie. The pressure of our final college season was real, even if it wasn't the main thing keeping me up at night. Marcus reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It was a simple gesture, something he'd done 100 times before, but tonight it sent electricity racing up my arm. Hey, we're going to be fine. We've got each other's backs, right? Like always. I looked at his hand covering mine, tan against my paler skin, and felt something crack in my chest. Right, I managed. Like always. 3 weeks later, everything changed during our game against State. We were 20 minutes into the second half, tied 2-2, when it happened. Marcus had the ball, cutting through State's defense with that fluid grace that made scouts lean forward in their seats. I was running parallel to him, ready for the pass. When their defender came in hard from the side, the tackle was legal but brutal. I heard the impact before I saw it, a sickening crunch that made the crowd gasp. Marcus went down hard, and he didn't get back up. I was the first one to reach him, dropping to my knees beside his crumpled form. His face was white, twisted in pain, both hands clutching his right knee. Marcus, hey, look at me. Look at me. His eyes found mine, wide with fear and agony. Jemea Kant, it hurts. I know. The medics are coming. Just breathe. I took his hand without thinking, threading my fingers through his. He squeezed so hard I thought my bones might break, but I didn't pull away. The team doctor and athletic trainers surrounded us quickly, carefully examining his knee while Marcus bit back screams. I stayed by his head, one hand still clasped in his, the other smoothing back his sweat-damped hair. You're okay? You're going to be okay? I kept repeating. Though I had no idea if it was true, they brought a stretcher onto the field. As they loaded Marcus onto it, he refused to let go of my hand. Come with me, he said, his voice rough with pain. Please, Jamie, I need you there. Not going anywhere, I promised. The ambulance ride to the hospital was a blur. I sat beside the gurney, still holding Marcus's hand while the paramedics worked around us. At the emergency room, they tried to make me wait outside, but Marcus wouldn't let go of me. He stays, he told the doctor firmly. And somehow, impossibly, they let me stay. Hours later, after x-rays and an MRI and consultations with an orthopedic surgeon, we had the diagnosis, torn ACL, surgery required, 6 to 9 months of recovery. For a junior in college being scouted by professional teams, it was devastating news. Marcus took it silently, his jaw clenched tight, eyes fixed on the ceiling. After the doctor left, I expected him to cry or yell or break something. Instead, he just turned his head to look at me. That's it then. My shot at going pro gone. No, I said firmly. You'll recover. You'll come back stronger. This isn't over. Jamie, I mean it, Marcus. You're the best player I've ever seen. One injury isn't going to change that. I squeezed his hand, willing him to believe me. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around his eyes. I don't know what I'd do without you, he said quietly. My heart hammered against my ribs. Good thing you'll never have to find out. They kept him overnight for observation and scheduled surgery for early the following week. The doctor said he could go home the next morning if someone could stay with him and monitor his condition. I can do that. I volunteered immediately. I'll stay tonight and take him home tomorrow. The nurse brought a cot into Marcus's room for me, though I barely slept. Every time Marcus shifted or made a sound, I was up, checking if he needed anything. Around 3 a.m, I woke to find him watching me in the dim light from the hallway. Can't sleep? I whispered. Pain meds are messing with my head, he said. Jamie, can I ask you something? Anything. Why don't you ever date anyone? The question caught me completely off guard. I sat up, trying to see his face clearly in the darkness. What do you mean? You're smart, funny, good-looking. Trust me, half the girls on campus would go out with you if you asked. But you never do. Why? My mouth went dry. This was dangerous territory. Especially at 3 a.m. with my defenses down and Marcus looking at me with those dark, searching eyes. I guess I just haven't found the right person yet. Or maybe, Marcus said slowly, you have, and you're too scared to do anything about it. The air between us felt charged, electric. Marcus, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's the pain meds talking. Closed his eyes, effectively ending the conversation. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. I brought Marcus home from the hospital the next afternoon, helping him navigate the stairs to our apartment on crutches. He was still groggy from the medication, leaning heavily on me as we made our way inside. I had cleaned the apartment that morning, changed his sheets, stocked up on easy meals and anything else I thought he might need. You didn't have to do all this, Marcus said, looking around at the organized space with something like wonder. Of course I did. Now come on, let's get you settled on the couch. Doctor's orders leg elevated ice every few hours. Next few days fell into a routine. I'd wake up early, make sure Marcus had breakfast and his medications, then head to classes. Between lectures, I'd text him, constantly checking if he needed anything, making sure he was following the doctor's instructions. After practice, I'd rush home to make dinner and help him with the exercises the physical therapist had prescribed. My teammates noticed. You're going to burn yourself out, Taylor warned me after practice one day. You know it's okay to let other people help, right? I'm fine, I insisted. Marcus needs me. That's not what I'm worried about, Taylor said meaningfully. Jamie, be careful. You're getting in deeper, and if he doesn't feel the same way, I know what I'm doing, but did I? Every day I spent taking care of Marcus, every moment sitting beside him on the couch watching movies or keeping him company during his grueling PT exercises. I felt myself falling harder. It was in the little things, the way he'd smile at me when I brought him coffee exactly how he liked it. The grateful squeeze of his hand when I helped him to the bathroom in the middle of the night. The way he'd fall asleep during movies with his head on my shoulder. 1 week after the injury, I came home from a particularly brutal practice to find Marcus sitting at the kitchen table, his laptop open in front of him. He looked up when I walked in, and I could immediately tell something was wrong. Hey, what are you doing up? You should be resting. I set down my bag and moved closer. I was looking at the scouting reports, Marcus said flatly. The scouts who were interested, they've all backed off. No one wants to invest in a player with a major knee injury and no guarantee of full recovery. My chest tightened. Marcus, don't, he said, his voice cracking. Don't tell me it's going to be okay or that I'll bounce back. We both know my chances of going pro just dropped to almost nothing. I pulled out the chair beside him and sat down close enough that our knees touched. So what? Soccer isn't everything. It's been everything to me since I was 6 years old, Marcus said, and now there were tears streaming down his face. It's all I've ever wanted, all I've ever been good at. Without it, who even am I? You're Marcus Chen, I said firmly, reaching out to cup his face, thumbs brushing away his tears without thinking. You're brilliant and kind and funny. You're the person who makes everyone around you better just by being there. You're my best friend and the most incredible person I know. Soccer is something you do, not who you are." He stared at me, his eyes shining with tears and something else I couldn't quite name. We were so close, I could count his eyelashes, feel his breath on my face. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Jamie," he whispered, and the way he said my name made my stomach flip. Then his phone buzzed loudly on the table, shattering the moment. Marcus pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly with his sleeve. "Sorry, I'm a mess." "You're allowed to be a mess," I said, forcing myself to stand up and put some distance between us. "I'm going to order us some food, okay? And then we're going to watch something stupid and funny until you feel better." "Okay," Marcus agreed softly. But when I glanced back at him from the kitchen, he was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Marcus's surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I drove him to the hospital at dawn, watched him change into the hospital gown, held his hand while they prepped him for anesthesia. Right before they wheeled him away, he pulled me close. His fingers tangled in the front of my shirt. "If something goes wrong," he started. "Nothing's going to go wrong," I interrupted. "But if it does, I need you to know." His eyes were intense, searching mine like he was trying to communicate something he couldn't say out loud. "Marcus, you're going to be fine. I'll be right here when you wake up." The surgery took 4 hours. I spent them pacing the waiting room, drinking terrible coffee, and trying not to think about all the things Marcus might have been about to say. Taylor showed up halfway through, bringing real food and moral support. "You look awful," Taylor observed, handing me a sandwich. "Thanks, that's helpful." "Serious." "Jamie, when's the last time you slept? Like, actually slept?" I shrugged. Sleep had been difficult lately, my mind too full of Marcus worrying about his recovery. Analyzing every interaction between us, lying awake in my room, imagining things I had no right to imagine. "You can't keep going like this," Taylor said gently. "I get that you care about him, but you have to take care of yourself too." "I'm fine. You're in love with him," Taylor said bluntly. "And you're killing yourself trying to be everything he needs while pretending you don't want more. That's not fine." I opened my mouth to deny it, then closed it again. What was the point? Taylor saw right through me. He doesn't feel the same way. "Are you sure about that?" "Because from where I'm standing, the way Marcus looks at you don't," I said sharply. "Please don't give me hope when there isn't any. He's straight, he's my best friend, and that's all this is ever going to be. I've made my peace with it." Taylor looked at me with something like pity, but before they could respond, the surgeon appeared, still in his scrubs. "The surgery went well," he announced, and I felt like I could breathe again for the first time in hours. Marcus was groggy when they finally let me see him in recovery, his leg wrapped in a massive brace. "Hey," he mumbled, trying to focus on my face. "You stayed." "Of course I stayed. Where else would I be?" "Best friend in the whole world," he slurred, still loopy from anesthesia. "So lucky. Love you, Jamie. Love you so much." My heart stopped, but I knew it was just the drugs talking. People said all kinds of things under anesthesia. It didn't mean anything. "Love you too, buddy," I said, smoothing back his hair. "Now rest. You need to recover." "Stay?" he asked, his hand reaching for mine. "I'm not going anywhere." The doctor released Marcus the next day with a strict recovery protocol and stern warnings about not putting weight on his leg. Getting him up the stairs to our apartment was an ordeal that left us both exhausted and laughing deliriously. I'd missed classes again, but I didn't care. Marcus needed me. That night, I helped him into bed and was about to head to my own room when his hand shot out, catching my wrist. "Don't go," he said quietly. "I know it's stupid, but I don't want to be alone tonight." "Would you? Could you stay? Just until I fall asleep?" I should have said no. Lying in bed next to Marcus while my heart hammered and every nerve in my body was hyper-aware of his proximity. But I couldn't deny him anything. Never could. "Yeah, okay. Let me just change." I came back in sweatpants and a t-shirt, planning to lie on top of the covers and maintain some semblance of appropriate boundaries. But when I settled carefully on the other side of his queen bed, Marcus shifted closer, his head coming to rest against my shoulder. "Is this okay?" he asked softly. "No," I thought. "This is torture." "Yeah," I said instead. "This is fine." We lay there in the darkness, Marcus's breathing gradually slowing and evening out. I stayed perfectly still, afraid to move and break whatever spell had made him want me here. My arm was around his shoulders when had that happened, and his hand rested on my chest, right over my racing heart. "Hey," Marcus murmured, half asleep. "Yeah, thank you for everything. I don't know how to. You're just... Thank you. Anytime," I whispered. He fell asleep like that, curled against my side, trusting and warm. I stayed awake for hours, memorizing the feeling of him in my arms, knowing this was probably the closest I'd ever get to what I really wanted. Eventually, exhaustion claimed me, and I drifted off with Marcus's hair tickling my chin and his breath warm against my neck. I woke up alone. Something changed after that night, but not in the way I'd hoped. Marcus started pulling away, gradually but definitely. He didn't ask me to stay again, even though I could tell he was having trouble sleeping. He stopped reaching for my hand when the pain got bad. Our easy physical closeness, the casual touches and comfortable proximity that had always defined our friendship suddenly had this awkward tension around it. "I think I should start doing more on my own," Marcus announced one morning, about 2 weeks after surgery. "I've been relying on you too much. You need to focus on your own life." "Taking care of you is part of my life," I said, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "I don't mind helping." "I know, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I just think some space would be good. For both of us?" Space. The word felt like a punch to the gut. "If that's what you want, it is." So I gave him space. I stopped checking on him constantly, stopped hovering during his PT exercises. I threw myself into soccer and school, staying late at the library, accepting when teammates asked me to hang out. If Marcus noticed, he didn't say anything. We were still roommates, still polite and friendly. But the easy intimacy we'd shared was gone, replaced by a careful distance that made my chest ache every time I thought about it. Taylor confronted me after practice one day. About 3 weeks into the new, worse normal. "What the hell happened between you and Marcus?" "Nothing happened." "Why?" "Because you're both miserable and you're barely speaking to each other." "Did you guys have a fight?" "No fight. He wanted space, so I'm giving him space." I grabbed my water bottle and headed for the locker room, but Taylor followed. "Jamie, come on. Talk to me." I spun around, all the frustration and hurt I'd been bottling up suddenly spilling over. "What do you want me to say, Taylor?" "That I'm in love with my straight best friend who clearly regrets letting me get too close. That I'm dying slowly watching him pull away and not knowing why. That every day I have to pretend I'm fine when I'm actually breaking apart." Taylor's eyes widened. "Jamie, forget it. I'm fine. Everything's fine." I turned and walked into the locker room. Ending the conversation before I said anything else, I'd regret that evening. I came home to find Marcus at the kitchen table with a girl I recognized from campus. She was pretty, laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm. Marcus looked up when I walked in, something almost defiant in his expression. "Hey, Jamie, this is Ashley." "She's in my economics class." "Ashley, this is my roommate, Jamie."
"Nice to meet you, Ashley,"
said brightly. "Me too," I managed, forcing a smile. "I'm just going to grab some stuff from my room. Don't mind me." I made it to my bedroom before the tears came, silent and angry and humiliating. This was it then. Marcus was moving on, finding someone who could give him what he needed without all the complicated feelings. This was good, I told myself. This was what needed to happen. I should be happy for him, but I wasn't happy. I was devastated. I heard Ashley leave about an hour later, heard Marcus's uneven footsteps as he made his way to his room on crutches. Part of me wanted to go to him, to check if he was okay, to fall back into our old patterns. But he'd been clear about wanting space, and the last thing I wanted was to be where I wasn't wanted. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "You okay?" I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Fine, just tired." night. I wasn't fine, but I was getting better at pretending. The next few weeks were torture. Marcus kept seeing Ashley, though he was weirdly secretive about it, never bringing her back to the apartment, always meeting her elsewhere. I tried to be supportive, tried to act like it didn't bother me, but I could feel something building inside me, pressure that had nowhere to go. Our soccer team made it to the conference championship without Marcus. It felt wrong celebrating victories knowing he couldn't be part of them, but he came to every game anyway. Sitting in the stands on crutches, cheering louder than anyone. After we won the semifinal, the team wanted to celebrate. But all I could think about was Marcus sitting alone in the stands while everyone else partied. "You going to the team party?" he asked as we walked to my car after the game. "I don't know. Maybe for a little while. You should go. You guys deserve to celebrate." His voice was flat, almost cold. "Marcus, I'm fine, Jamie. Seriously, go have fun." But I didn't go to the party. I drove us home in silence, the tension between us thick enough to choke on. We'd been dancing around whatever was happening between us for weeks now, and I was exhausted from it. When we got back to the apartment, Marcus headed straight for his room without a word. Something inside me snapped. "We need to talk," I said, following him. "Jamie, it's late. I don't care. We're not doing this anymore, this weird, awful distance where we can barely look at each other. You're my best friend, Marcus. Or at least you were. I deserve to know what I did wrong." Marcus turned to face me, his expression pained. "You didn't do anything wrong? Then what happened? Things were fine, better than fine, and then suddenly you couldn't stand to be in the same room as me. Was it something I said? Something I did? No, Jamie. Then what?" I was practically shouting now, all my hurt and frustration pouring out. "Because I've been going crazy trying to figure out why you suddenly hate me." "I don't hate you," Marcus shouted back. "God, Jamie, I could never hate you. That's the problem." "That doesn't make any sense." "It makes perfect sense." He was leaning heavily on his crutches now, his chest heaving. "You want to know why I've been pulling away? Because I was starting to want things I have no right to want. Because every time you touched me, every time you looked at me with those worried eyes." I wanted to, he stopped abruptly, shaking his head. "Forget it. This was a mistake." "No," I said firmly, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Finish what you were going to say. I can't. Marcus, please. Because I'm in love with you." The words exploded out of him, raw and desperate. "I'm in love with you, and I have been for I don't even know how long. And it's killing me because you're my best friend, and I know you don't feel the same way and I'm ruining everything, but I can't help it." Closed the distance between us before he could say another word. My hands coming up to frame his face, cutting off his spiral with my lips against his. For a moment Marcus froze, clearly shocked. Then he was kissing me back, desperate and hungry. One hand fisting in my shirt while he balanced precariously on his crutches. It was clumsy and awkward and absolutely perfect. Every feeling I'd been bottling up for years poured into that kiss-all, the longing and fear and desperate hope. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus was staring at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. "You I thought," he stammered. "You thought I didn't feel the same way," I finished, laughing breathlessly. "Marcus, I've been in love with you since sophomore year. Maybe longer. I just never thought didn't think you liked guys." "I didn't either," Marcus admitted. "Or I did, but I was terrified of it, so I kept dating girls and telling myself I was straight. But then you were taking care of me after the injury, and you were just so..." His voice cracked. "I couldn't keep pretending anymore. But I thought you were straight, and I was terrified of ruining our friendship, so I tried to put distance between us before I did something stupid like confess like you just did." I teased gently. "Like I just did," he agreed, a small smile tugging at his lips. "So now what?" "Now," I said, carefully helping him sit on the edge of his bed. Mindful of his injured leg, "You tell me what's been going on with Ashley." Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. "I was trying to make you jealous. It was stupid and immature, and it didn't even work because you barely reacted." "Are you kidding?" I was dying inside. "I just got really good at hiding it." "We're both idiots," Marcus said, reaching for my hand. "Complete idiots," I agreed, threading my fingers through his. But for the record, I don't want space. I never wanted space. I want this, whatever this is. What if we screw it up? Marcus asked quietly. What if we try this and it ruins our friendship? What if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what could have been? Marcus considered this, then tugged me closer until I was standing between his legs, his arms looping around my waist. I'm scared, he admitted, looking up at me. Me too, I said honestly. But I'm more scared of not trying. He pulled me down into another kiss, slower this time, tender and exploratory. This was Marcus, my best friend, the person I knew better than anyone in the world. But kissing him felt like discovering something entirely new. When we broke apart, he was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in weeks. Stay with me tonight? He asked. For real this time, not just until I fall asleep. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. We lay in Marcus's bed in the darkness, facing each other. Close enough that I could feel his breath on my face, but not quite touching. The space between us felt electric, charged with possibility and a nervous tension that made my heart race. I can't believe this is real, Marcus whispered. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and you'll be in your room and everything will still be awful. I'm real, I promised. Reaching out to trace my fingers along his jaw, marveling that I was allowed to touch him like this now. This is real, Marcus caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm that sent shivers down my spine. I've wanted to do that for so long, he admitted. Just touch you, hold you, kiss you. It was torture being so close to you and not being able to. I know, I said softly. God, Marcus, do you have any idea how many times I've laid in my room, knowing you were just down the hall, wishing I could? I broke off, feeling my face heat. Wishing you could what? Marcus asked, his voice dropping lower, a note of heat entering it that made my stomach flip. This, I said simply, and closed the remaining distance between us, kissing him again. It was different from the desperate kisses earlier, lower, deeper, exploratory. Marcus's hand came up to tangle in my hair, and the gentle tug sent electricity racing through me. We kissed until we were both breathing hard. Foreheads pressed together in the darkness. We should probably sleep, I said reluctantly. You need to rest your leg. Don't want to sleep, Marcus murmured. Don't want to waste a single minute of this. We have all the time in the world now, I reminded him. Promise? I promise. Marcus settled against my chest, his head tucked under my chin, one arm wrapped around my waist. It felt natural, perfect, like we'd been sleeping like this for years, instead of this being our first night as whatever we were now, Jamie? Marcus said sleepily. Yeah, we're going to figure this out, right? All of it's is coming out what this means for our friendship. We'll figure it out together, I assured him. One day at a time. Together, Marcus echoed, and I felt him smile against my chest. I liked the sound of that. I woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the window and Marcus's dark eyes watching me. Hey, he said softly. Hey yourself. How long have you been awake? A while. I kept thinking I dreamed last night, so I had to stay awake to make sure you were really here. I reached out, cupping his face gently. Still real. Still here? Marcus leaned into my touch, his eyes fluttering closed for a moment. When he opened them again, there was a vulnerability there that made my chest tighten. I'm terrified, he admitted. I've never done this before, Ben, with a guy. Come out. Any of it. What if I'm terrible at it? What if people react badly? Then we'll deal with it, I said firmly. And for the record, you're not terrible at it. Last night it was everything. A smile tugged at Marcus's lips. It was pretty great, wasn't it? The best. We spent that morning in bed, talking about everything and nothing, our fears about coming out, our hopes for the future. All the moments over the years when we'd almost said something or almost made a move. It turned out we'd both been pining for far longer than either of us had realized, dancing around each other while being too afraid to take that final step. Remember that night after my injury, when I asked you to stay? Marcus said. I was so close to just telling you then, but I was terrified. And I thought maybe it was just the trauma of the injury making me feel things that weren't real. They were real, I said, pressing a kiss to his forehead. They've always been real. The sound of my phone buzzing interrupted us. Multiple texts from Taylor, increasingly frantic. Where are you? You missed practice, coach is pissed, Jamie. Answer your phone. Oh no, I groaned, checking the time. I'd completely forgotten about Saturday morning practice. I have to go. Coach is going to kill me. Go, Marcus said, though his hand tightened on my shirt for a moment before letting go. But come back? Always, I promised, stealing one more kiss before reluctantly pulling away. I made it to practice 20 minutes late, earning me extra conditioning and a lecture from coach about responsibility. Taylor cornered me afterward in the locker room, their expression knowing. You have that look, they observed. What look? The look of someone who finally got what they wanted. You and Marcus, did you finally? I couldn't help the grin that spread across my face. We talked. Really talked. And yeah, we're together now. Taylor pulled me into a hug, laughing. Finally. I thought you two were going to dance around each other forever. I'm happy for you, Jamie, really happy. Thanks. We haven't told anyone else yet, so your secret's safe with me, Taylor promised. But, you know, the team's going to be cool with it, right? Most of them probably already suspected anyway. Maybe we just want to take things slow, figure out what this is before we start telling everyone. Fair enough. But for the record, you two are going to be disgustingly cute together. The next few weeks were a period of adjustment, learning how to be together in this new way. We decided to keep things private for now, not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted time to figure ourselves out without outside pressure. In public, we were still just best friends and roommates. In private, we were learning what it meant to be something more. Marcus's recovery continued. He was making good progress with physical therapy, slowly regaining strength and mobility in his knee. I went with him to his PT appointments when I could, holding his hand when the exercises got painful, celebrating every small victory. Now, though, there was a different dimension to our closeness, stolen kisses in the car on the way home. The way his hand would find mine under the table at restaurants, the knowledge that at the end of the day, we'd fall asleep tangled together. We talked about coming out constantly, weighing the pros and cons, discussing different approaches. Marcus was nervous about telling his parents, who he described as traditional and not particularly open-minded. My parents, I knew, would be fine. They'd always been supportive and accepting. But telling them meant making this real in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. What if this is just a phase? Marcus asked one night about 3 weeks into our relationship. We were on the couch, his head in my lap while I absently played with his hair. What if I wake up one day and realize I'm not actually attracted to guys, that it was just you? I'd been expecting this question, had been asking it myself, honestly. Would that be so bad? If it's just me? I don't know, maybe I just don't want to hurt you. Don't want to put you through coming out and dealing with all the complications if I'm not sure. Marcus, look at me. I waited until he tilted his head back to meet my eyes. I'm not going to pretend I'm not scared too. But I think we're overthinking this. You don't have to have your whole identity figured out right now. All you have to know is how you feel about me, about us. The rest can come later. How do you always know the right thing to say? Years of practice being your best friend, I teased, then grew more serious. But really, there's no rush. We can take this as slow as you need. Marcus sat up, shifting to face me properly, despite the awkwardness of his still healing knee. I don't want slow, he said firmly. I've wasted enough time being scared. I know how I feel about you, Jamie. That part I'm sure of. Yeah. He kissed me, slow and thorough, until I forgot what we'd been talking about. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with determination. Let's tell people. Not everyone, not yet. But our close friends, at least. I don't want to hide this anymore. You're sure? I'm terrified, Marcus admitted. But I'm sure. We started small. Taylor, of course, already knew and was thrilled for us. We told a few more teammates during a team dinner, casually mentioning we were dating now. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Flots of finally. And we totally knew and supportive pats on the back. If anyone had a problem with it, they kept it to themselves. The real test came when Marcus decided to tell his parents. We spent hours preparing, with Marcus practicing what he wanted to say, gaming out different scenarios. I offered to be there with him when he made the call, but he wanted to do it alone. "I love you," he said before disappearing into his room with his phone. And even though we'd been saying it to each other for a while now, it still made my heart skip. "Love you too. I'll be right out here if you need me." The call lasted almost an hour. I tried to distract myself with homework but couldn't focus, straining to hear Marcus's muffled voice through the door. When he finally emerged, his eyes were red, but he was smiling. "How did it go?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Better than I expected, actually." Dad was quiet, which isn't surprising. Mom asked a million questions, mostly about you, weirdly enough. She wants to meet you properly, now that she knows we're together. She's not upset? I think she's more upset that I didn't tell her sooner. She said, his voice cracked slightly. She said she's known for years that I was probably queer, and she was just waiting for me to figure it out myself. And that as long as I'm happy, she's happy. I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake slightly. These were good tears, relief tears. "That's amazing, Marcus. I'm so proud of you." "One hurdle down," he said, pulling back to wipe his eyes. "Your parents next?" "Whenever you're ready," we told my parents the following weekend, driving to my hometown for a casual visit that became a coming-out conversation over lunch. True to form, my mom immediately started crying happy tears and pulled Marcus into a hug, while my dad clapped me on the shoulder and said, "About time you found someone worthy of you." "We always liked Marcus," Mom said, dabbing at her eyes. "We hoped you two would figure yourselves out eventually." "Did everyone know but us?" I asked, laughing. "Pretty much," Dad confirmed. "You two have been crazy about each other since you were freshmen." With the personal stuff settling into a new normal, I could finally focus on soccer again. We'd made it to the conference championship game, the biggest game of our college careers. The scouts would be there despite everything that had happened. This was our chance to prove ourselves. Marcus couldn't play, obviously, but he was at every practice, helping coach with strategy, analyzing game footage, being the brilliant soccer mind he'd always been. He was also my anchor, keeping me grounded when the pressure threatened to overwhelm me. The night before the championship, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all the ways I could mess up. Around midnight, I gave up and went to Marcus's room, knowing he'd probably still be awake too. "Can't sleep?" he asked, not surprised to see me. Too much in my head. "Is it okay if I—" "Get in here," Marcus said, pulling back the covers in invitation. I settled beside him, immediately feeling calmer. Marcus's arm came around me, pulling me against his chest. "You're going to be amazing tomorrow," he murmured into my hair. "I wish you could be out there with me, too. But I'll be in the stands, cheering the loudest. And Jamie, whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud of you. You've worked so hard for this." "None of it would have been possible without you," I said honestly. "You made me better, on the field and off it." "We made each other better," Marcus corrected. "That's what we do." I tilted my head back to kiss him, slow and sweet and grounding. "I love you," I said against his lips. "Love you too. Now, try to get some sleep. You need to rest." I did sleep. Eventually, wrapped in Marcus's arms, with his heartbeat steady under my ear, I woke up feeling ready, centered in a way I hadn't been in weeks. The game was intense from the first whistle. We were playing Central State, who'd beaten us earlier in the season. They were fast, aggressive, and hungry for the title. By halftime, we were down 1-0, and Coach was giving us a pep talk that mostly went over my head because I was too busy scanning the stands for Marcus. I found him sitting with my parents and Taylor, wearing my spare jersey. He caught me looking and flashed me a thumbs up and a smile that settled something anxious in my chest. I could do this. The second half was a battle. I was everywhere on the field, pushing harder than I ever had, making plays I didn't know I was capable of. With 20 minutes left, I assisted on the tying goal. With 10 minutes left, I found myself with the ball 30 yards from goal, defenders closing in. I could hear Marcus's voice in my head from countless practice sessions. "Trust your instincts. Take the shot." So I did. The ball sailed past the goalkeeper's outstretched fingers and into the top corner of the net. The stadium, erupted. My teammates mobbed me, screaming and laughing and piling on in celebration. We held on for the remaining minutes, and then it was over. We'd won. Conference champions. As the team celebrated on the field, I looked up into the stands. Marcus was on his feet, difficult with his knees still in a brace, jumping and shouting with tears streaming down his face. Our eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, I didn't care who saw. I pointed up at him, pressed my hand to my heart, then pointed at him again. A simple gesture, but one that meant everything. "This is for you." He understood. I could see it in his face, the way his hand came up to cover his mouth, the way he nodded through his tears. I'd later learned that my mom caught the whole exchange on video, and that several of my teammates noticed and thought it was the cutest thing they'd ever seen. After the trophy presentation and the medal ceremony, after the photos and the initial celebration, I finally made it off the field. Marcus was waiting at the tunnel, balanced on his crutches. I didn't think twice, I just ran to him, pulling him into a hug that probably hurt his leg, but he didn't complain. "You did it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "God, Jamie, you were incredible out there." "It was all for you," I said quietly, not caring that my teammates and coaches and parents were all around us. "Everything I do is for you." Marcus pulled back just enough to look at me, and there was so much love in his eyes it took my breath away. "Can I kiss you?" he asked softly. "Right here in front of everyone." My heart hammered against my ribs. This would be at the moment we stopped hiding, stopped pretending we were just friends. This would change everything. "Please," I whispered. Marcus leaned in, one hand cupping my face, and kissed me right there in the stadium tunnel with half our team watching. It was gentle and brief and absolutely perfect. When we broke apart, there was a moment of stunned silence. And then Taylor started cheering, and then the whole team was whooping and clapping. Finally, someone shouted, "We've been waiting for you two to get together for years." I couldn't help but laugh, my forehead pressed against Marcus's. "Guess we're out now." "Worth it," Marcus said firmly. "So worth it." The celebration continued into the night parties and dinners and countless people congratulating us on the win. Through it all, Marcus stayed by my side, and nobody questioned it. My teammates treated us the same as always, except now they made jokes about us being couple goals, and asked Marcus if he had any tips for dealing with me late that night. Back at our apartment after all the chaos had died down, Marcus and I finally had a moment alone. We were both exhausted, emotionally and physically drained, but too wired to sleep. "This was the best day of my life," I said, sitting beside him on the couch. "Mine too," Marcus agreed. "Even though I couldn't play, even with the injury, having you being open about us. Watching you succeed's more than I ever dreamed of. Do you regret it? The injury, I mean. Missing your shot at going pro?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that mourns what could have been. But honestly, Jamie, if the injury hadn't happened, I might have kept hiding from my feelings forever. I might have lost you, and that would have been so much worse than losing soccer. You wouldn't have lost me. I'd have been your friend forever, no matter what.
Oh.
But would you have been this? Marcus asked, taking my hand. Would I have ever been brave enough to tell you how I felt if circumstances hadn't forced us to spend so much time together? I don't know. Maybe everything happened the way it was supposed to. Maybe I agreed. I still wish you could have had both, though. You and professional soccer. Who says I can't? Marcus said with a small smile. My doctor said if I keep progressing in PT, I could be fully recovered in another 6 months. Maybe I'm not going to the MLS right out of college, but that doesn't mean my playing days are over. And in the meantime, I've been thinking, maybe coaching is my path. I'm good at strategy, good at reading the game. I could do something with that. You'd be an incredible coach. You're going to go pro, Marcus said firmly. The scouts were watching today and you played out of your mind. They'd be idiots not to sign you. If I go pro, will you come with me? Jamie, I'd follow you anywhere. You know that. The weeks after the championship were a whirlwind. Scout interest picked up significantly, not just for me, but surprisingly for Marcus too. Several teams reached out about coaching opportunities and apprenticeships. Impressed by his tactical knowledge and leadership, It turned out that even though his playing career had been derailed, his soccer journey was far from over. We had to figure out the logistics of our future. What if we got opportunities in different cities? What if one of us had to choose between a dream and the relationship? These were big, scary questions, but we tackled them together. The way we'd learned to tackle everything. "I think we need a pact," Marcus said one evening, as we sorted through various offers and opportunities. "No matter what happens with soccer, with careers, with life, we prioritize us. We make decisions together. We don't let the distance or the pressure pull us apart." "I can agree to that," I said, linking my pinky with his in a childish gesture that somehow felt perfectly right. My parents invited us to dinner a few weeks later, ostensibly to celebrate the championship, but really to get to know Marcus as my boyfriend rather than just my best friend. It was slightly awkward at first. Mom kept making embarrassing comments about how cute we were together, but by the end of the night, we were all laughing and comfortable, Dad said as we were leaving, pulling me aside for a private word. "I'm really proud of you, son. Not just for the soccer, though, that's impressive, but for being brave enough to be yourself, to go after what you want. That takes real courage." "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Take care of each other," he added, glancing at Marcus, was getting squeezed in one of Mom's enthusiastic goodbye hugs. "You've got something special there." "I know. I'm not going to mess it up." "See that you don't?" Dad said with a smile. Marcus's physical therapy continued to progress well. 6 months after surgery, he was cleared to start light training again. I'll never forget the day he took his first steps back onto a soccer field without crutches or a brace. He just stood there for a moment, breathing in the smell of grass and leather, tears running down his face. "You okay?" I asked, coming up beside him. "Yeah," he said, wiping his eyes. I wasn't sure I'd ever stand here again like this. It feels like coming home." "Want to kick the ball around a bit?" "Gentle," Marcus warned. "Doctor said no crazy moves yet." We passed the ball back and forth, easy and relaxed, the way we'd done thousands of times before. But this time felt different, weighted with significance. Marcus was moving well, not at his old level yet, but getting there. There was hope. "I got an offer," I said, trapping the ball under my foot. "Real Salt Lake. They want to sign me to their USL affiliate team with a potential move up to the MLS roster." Marcus's face lit up. "Jamie, that's incredible. Are you going to take it?" "That depends. There's also an offer from Sacramento Republic. It's a better contract, more money, higher level of play, and Sacramento's the obvious choice. Except Real Salt Lake is based in Utah, and they're interested in you too. Not as a player yet, but as a development coach for their academy. It would mean we could stay together, build our careers in the same place." Marcus went very still. "You'd give up the better offer to stay with me?" "In a heartbeat. But I want to know what you want. What's going to make you happy?" "You make me happy," Marcus said simply. "Everything else is just details." We took the Real Salt Lake offers. It meant moving to Utah, far from our college town and the life we'd built, but it also meant building a new life together. We got an apartment in Salt Lake City, small but cozy, with a view of the mountains and room for both our soccer gear. We adopted a rescue dog named Striker, who chewed everything but loved us unconditionally. We built a life. I played professionally, working my way up from the affiliate team to occasional call-ups with the main MLS roster. Marcus coached, discovering that he had a real gift for teaching young players and developing talent. His knee continued to improve, and eventually, he started playing in local adult leagues, not professional, but enough to scratch the competitive itch. "Any regrets?" I asked him one evening, about a year after we'd moved to Utah. We were sitting on our tiny balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink, Striker snoring at our feet. "About what?" "All of it. Coming out, choosing this life, giving up on the professional playing career you always wanted." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then reached over and took my hand. "Not a single one. This life with you, coaching, still being part of soccer, even if it looks different than I planned, it's better than anything I imagined. I'm happy, Jamie. Really, truly happy." "Me too," I said, squeezing his fingers. "Do you ever think about that night you stayed with me after my injury?" Marcus asked. how scared I was, how I had no idea where my life was going. All the time. If someone had told me then that within a year, I'd be out and proud, dating my best friend, and building a coaching career in a city I'd never been to before, would have thought they were crazy. But here we are, I echoed.
I love you, Marcus said, turning to face me fully.
The setting sun caught in his dark eyes, making them glow. I know I tell you that every day, but I want you to really hear it. You changed my life in the best possible way. You made me brave enough to be myself. You did the same for me, I said, leaning in to kiss him softly. We saved each other. 3 years later, I was playing regularly for the Real Salt Lake first team. Marcus had been promoted to assistant coach for the USL, its affiliate team, and was taking online classes toward his coaching licenses. We'd moved to a bigger apartment, gotten a second dog, and were talking about maybe buying a house. The university was retiring our championship coach and holding a reunion. Game current team versus alumni. Marcus had been cleared by his doctors for full contact play, and we'd both been invited to play on the alumni side. It's going to be weird being back there, Marcus said as we packed for the trip, seeing everyone playing on that field again. Good weird or bad weird? Good, I think. A lot has changed since we left. The reunion weekend was everything we hoped it would be. The campus looked the same, but felt different, like a place from another lifetime. We saw old teammates caught up with Taylor who'd gone on to play professionally in Europe, and visited our old apartment building the night before the game. We went to our old diner, the one where we'd had countless conversations over pancakes and coffee. We sat in the same booth we'd always favored, and it felt like coming home. You remember the night we came here after that party? I asked, when you told me that girl wasn't your type? How could I forget? I was trying so hard not to admit that you were my type. We were so oblivious. Speak for yourself, Marcus laughed. I was painfully aware. Just too chicken to do anything about it. Look at us now, though. We made it. We really did. The reunion game the next day was joyful chaos. The current team was young and fast, but we had experience and chemistry. Marcus was playing midfielder again, his knee fully healed, moving with the same grace that had first caught my attention all those years ago. We set up 2 goals for each other, falling back into our old rhythm like no time had passed at all after the game. As we were shaking hands with the current players, one of them, a freshman, who couldn't have been more than 18, approached us hesitantly. Excuse me, Marcus and Jamie, right? I just wanted to say I'm gay, and seeing you two, knowing that you made it work, it means a lot. Like, I was really scared coming here, wasn't sure if I could be out on the team. But knowing you guys were out when you played here, it made me feel like maybe it would be okay. Marcus and I exchanged glances, both of us getting choked up. It's going to be more than okay, Marcus told him. It's going to be great. You've got good people on this team who will have your back. And if you ever need advice, or just someone to talk to, I added, pulling out my phone, here's my number. Seriously, reach out anytime. The kid's face lit up like we'd given him the world, and maybe in a small way we had. Later that night, back in our hotel room, Marcus was quieter than usual. You okay? I asked, wrapping my arms around him from behind. Just thinking about that kid today. About how scared we were at his age, how long it took us to figure ourselves out. He turned in my arms to face me. I'm glad we can be that for someone, proof that it works out. That you can be gay and be an athlete and be happy. We're pretty good role models, I teased. We really are, Marcus agreed, then grew more serious. Jamie, I want to ask you something. Anything. He pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. My heart started racing as I realized what was happening. We've been together for 3 years. We've built a life together. A home, a future. You're my best friend, my partner, the love of my life. I can't imagine spending another day without knowing that we're in this forever. Marcus dropped to one knee carefully, mindful of his old injury pulled out a small box. Jamie Mitchell, will you marry me? I was crying before he'd even finished the question, nodding frantically. Yes. God, yes. Of course I'll marry you. The ring was simple and perfect. A silver band with both our initials engraved inside. Marcus stood a little unsteadily, and I pulled him into a kiss that tasted like salt from our tears and felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. I love you, I said against his lips. I've loved you for so long, and I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. I'm going to hold you to that, Marcus said, grinning through his tears. We were married 6 months later. In a small ceremony in the mountains outside Salt Lake City, Taylor was my best man. My parents cried. Marcus's mom gave a speech about how she'd always known we were meant to be together. We danced to a terrible pop song from our college days and cut a cake decorated with tiny soccer balls. It wasn't the life either of us had imagined. We were awkward 18-year-olds trying out for the soccer team. It was better, because sometimes the injury that derails your entire plan is actually the catalyst. It leads you to everything you were meant to have. Sometimes losing the future you thought you wanted opens the door to a future that's so much better than you could have imagined. And sometimes, the person who's been right beside you all along is exactly the person you're meant to build a life with. Marcus and I had found our way to each other through pain and fear and courage and love. We'd stumbled, we'd fallen, we'd gotten back up together, and now we'd spend the rest of our lives doing what we'd always done best, being a team, being partners, being each other's home. That night after the injury, when Marcus asked me to stay, changed everything. But really, I'd been choosing to stay with Marcusta, stand by his side, to support him, to love him from the very beginning. I just hadn't known it yet. Now I knew. And I'd keep choosing him every single day for the rest of our lives. The end.